Hi, this is Frode, and welcome back to the Actualize podcast. Today I'm thrilled to be chatting with Joe De Sena, who is the founder of Spartan Race, a series of amazing obstacle courses which are arranged every year around the world. He is also a legend in adventure racing circles and once completed 3 such races, each of them over 100 miles long, all in 1 week. Today we'll be chatting about some big ideas from his books Spartan Up and Spartan Fit. Joe, I really appreciate having you on the show and that you're taking the time to share your wisdom with us. All right.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Let's jump straight in. Can you tell us the story about why you started Spartan Race?
Yeah, basically the idea was I wanted to rip people off the couch. My mother was a fitness, yoga, vegan freak back in the 70s, and she would convince people to get healthy and transform their life, and I wanted to do it, and I wanted to do it on a big scale. And the name Spartan popped into our head one day sitting around the kitchen. It was clear that that was the perfect name, and I don't know, this idea of military obstacle races kind of felt like a real life video game. So I don't know, it all came together. Didn't really know if it was going to work or not, but we gave it a shot, and it's working.
Yeah, that's really cool. I actually attended my first Spartan race a couple of weeks ago, and it was one of the best experiences I've had my entire life.
You have fun?
Yeah, it was really great. In London, southeast, I think.
Wow.
So, how did you decide to name one of your books Spartan Up?
So basically, we were sitting around. For 30 years, I had this philosophy on just being a little more stoic in life, taking some cold showers, doing some burpees, and toughening up. You know, we've all heard the saying "toughen up," and I think we first came up with this idea of STFU, Spartan the blank up, and the publisher said you're not allowed to use that word, so we shortened it to Spartan Up, and that turned out to be a hit. We got lucky. It was New York Times bestseller.
Yeah, and yeah, that's just great. And my really favorite idea from the book is something you call obstacle immunity. Could you explain what that is and how Spartan races help us build it in our own lives?
Yeah, so we're all going to face adversity. There's no way around it. I like to say that obstacles have everybody's address. It's just a matter of when they show up, and when they do show up, you're either going to deal with them properly or improperly. And some are small obstacles, some are big obstacles, but we have the ability, we're fortunate, we have the ability to actually train in advance for the obstacles that are going to show up to our front door. And we have the ability to, in that process, change our frame of reference. So we don't view the world the same way after going through some tough times. We no longer sweat the small stuff after going through some tough times. And then thirdly, we have the ability to get fit and healthy, not just physically, but mentally in that process. So you get 3 giant benefits to purposeful suffering, to training for the tough times. And so the idea of building obstacle immunity is, take a cold shower. Get dropped off 10 miles from your house with no money and walk or run home. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Don't eat food for a day. Give up coffee, right? And start to do the tougher things. And by the way, these are not very tough things. I mean, if you and I lived thousands of years ago, we'd be hoping that we don't get eaten by a lion today, right? We'd be hoping that the sun rises. And so, giving up some simple things in our life, these creature comforts, is really no big deal. But to your point, it helps build obstacle immunity. And when we build obstacle immunity, we're just more prepared to take on life challenges.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I really like how you explain how we have a lot of comforts these days. And I've really been starting to try out some things myself, for example, the cold showers. And I was just amazed the first times I went out with only shorts and no t-shirt in the winter, that it was actually not that cold.
We used to do that when I was growing up. We used to do that in Queens, New York. We would wear t-shirts in the winter just to toughen up. And it wasn't so much just to be, just to gain bragging rights. It was like, if you can get used to the cold early on in the season, it just made those really cold days just easier. I mean, you sound like you're European. Where are you sitting right now?
Sitting in the northern part of Norway.
So you're in northern Norway, so you must be tough as nails just naturally. But but if you take, an Eastern European or somebody in Ukraine, somebody in Siberia, or in your case, northern Norway, you're just naturally not going to blink when you're sitting in, Florida, and it's a cold night and everybody's complaining. You're going to say, like, are you kidding me? This is like summer in northern Norway, right? So your frame of reference is different.
Ah, yeah. Just like you talked about in... is it true that you went through the race in the Iditarod and it was quite cold?
I did. It was quite cold in Alaska. My eyelashes were frozen, and I don't really have fond memories, but it was something I had to do and get through, and there are moments where I think, maybe someday I would take my kids and go do that trail again in Alaska in the winter and toughen them up, but secretly, don't tell anybody, I don't really want to do it.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, it's really harsh.
Yeah.
So I really love how you lay out the distinction between Spartan strength and grit in the book Spartan Up. Could you explain that to us and how we can apply it to our own lives?
Yeah, well, grit is this amazing characteristic that keeps you motivated even when things look really bleak, even when they're no longer interesting or boring. You somehow grit it out, right? You've got this resilience to stick with it, and so we call that this idea of having Spartan strength. And Angela Duckworth at University of Pennsylvania has done a lot of research, and what she found is it's one of the top indicators of whether somebody's going to be successful or not in anything in life is that ability to stick with it. And the going is going to get tough. It's always going to get tough. It's going to get tough, as I said earlier, for every one of us. And it's the people that just keep their head down and keep pushing through until they come out the other side that succeed in life. Not just economically succeed, but achieve any kind of goals. All the great stories, all the great books, all the great movies are all about those characters, men or women, or even dogs, that fight through the really seemingly impossible times and just never waver. Anybody could be good when things are good, right? It's being good when things are bad that makes a difference.
Yeah, exactly. And this may be related to something else I was wondering about. So Angela has called you a paragon of grit. And the most inspiring thing I have ever read is the public oath you swear in Spartan Fit of making obstacle racing an Olympic sport, even if it takes your entire lifetime. Can you tell us about how you arrived at such a determined commitment?
Well, so I'm a big believer in commitment, and I learned very early on in life that if you publicly commit, it makes it harder to back out on that commitment. So, and you also build integrity, because you're then not going to say something that you don't mean, right? If you have integrity and you're honest with yourself and honest with those around you, when you say something in the public, you're going to want to deliver it, right? You don't want to be a liar. You don't want to be a person that doesn't deliver on promises. So now you could use it in reverse to your question, which is you could force yourself into delivering by going out there and putting yourself out on a limb. And that's what I'm doing with making it an Olympic sport, by going out publicly, by putting it in the book and saying, you know what, we're going to achieve this. I have no choice. And, you know, I learned in Vermont, spent 14 years in Vermont with my family, and I built a bunch of small businesses. And what I learned is as those businesses failed at times, depending on who was helping run them, the reason they failed is because the going got tough. And as I said earlier, the going's always going to get tough. And the people we had running those businesses, they left. And they left not because they were weaker or didn't have the same level of integrity. They left because that's what everybody would do. Everybody would just pack it in and leave, right? If you had the option in the middle of a 100-mile run, 99% of the people, if they had the option to quit, if there was a bus, they quit. They jump on the bus. But if you don't have the option, if you can't quit, if you're on the hook for whatever reason, whether you're publicly committed, whether you're stuck in the woods, whether you have no way out, well then you succeed. You succeed because you have no choice. And so I don't know if that answers the question, but
yeah, that's really inspiring, and I really like the way you say that you forced yourself to deliver by making it public like that. And
yes.
Yeah. So Spartan Fit is a book that helps us train for Spartan races. It was incredibly helpful for me in training for my first Spartan race, and the first thing I'm wondering about is why it's often harder for people to get to the starting line in Spartan races and in life in general than to the finish line.
Well, the 1,000-mile journey begins with the first step, right? And I think people know that if they take that first step, it's going to require delayed gratification. You're going to have to start waking up earlier. You're going to have to go to bed earlier. You're going to drink less. You're going to have to force yourself to work out. And I think that first step is the beginning of a chain of events that are going to be painful. My father-in-law is looking at me as I describe this, and he's saying, "Boy, there's nothing you're saying that sounds great. It sounds like I want to stick an ice pick in my head."
No, I think it's truly great. I really appreciate having you on the show. So,
My friend in northern Norway here says it sounds great, and they love it. My father-in-law is soft. He was in the Navy, he did his time, and I think now he's just looking for a very relaxed life loaded with creature comforts. I might change the shower on him this morning so it only does a cold shower.
Wow. Yeah, that'd be harsh. Yeah, so this is the last question I have from Spartan Up.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what upside downside thinking is, and how it opens up the door to experience Spartan pride? Something maybe your stepfather-in-law might not do if he continues being creature comforts.
Yeah, so the idea with upside downside decision making is every decision we make is extremely important. They might not seem important, but the analogy I use is if you and I were on a rocket ship and we were heading out into space, if you turn one of those dials just a millimeter to the right or a millimeter to the left, it seems insignificant, just like a little decision, but actually we might end up on the wrong planet because of it. And so all these little decisions we make in life, when strung together, they determine the outcome of where we end up in life. And so when I make decisions, I quickly and naturally just think, what's the upside and what's the downside? What is the upside to not going outside right now in the rain, right? What's the downside to going outside in the rain and working out? All my decisions are framed that way. And so what I'm suggesting in the book is you should frame your decisions that way. And when you do that, it becomes a lot clearer what the right answer to that question is. 100 times a day.
So what you're suggesting to make it really practical is to make it a habit. For example, by reminding yourself many times a day to ask that question, upside or downside.
Yeah, what's the upside or downside to doing this? Well, should I wake up at 5 a.m. or should I sleep until 7? Should I stay out with my friends tonight watching football and drinking beers at the bar, or should I come home early? Should I park in this parking space over here? Should I take the stairs instead of the elevator? What's the upside and what's the downside? In most cases, what you're going to find is that the downside is it's going to be a little uncomfortable. But the upside, 99% of the time, outweighs the downside. So what? So what? It's a little uncomfortable right now. The outcome is, 10 times the outcome not doing it. Not eating the cookie right now, not having the ice cream, not having dinner late and then going, when you start to frame it in that way, it transforms your life.
Right. And the inner Spartan always knows what's the right choice, right?
That's right.
So you talk about one of the maxims from the famous samurai Miyamoto Musashi, which is, I think, make your combat stance your everyday stance. Can you explain how that applies to our everyday lives and why it's so important to have an event or goal to train for?
Well, it's very hard for any of us to do anything without having a line in the sand and a date and a commitment to what, we talked about that earlier. We find so many men and women, once they sign up for marriage and they have a date in the books, they start training and getting healthy and they want to look good on that wedding day. But if they didn't have that date, then they're not training and doing all those right things, right? Like when the professor says that the paper is due on Friday, well, that forces us into action to do all the work. A chain of events occur. And so the reality is most human beings are not self-motivated enough to put those hard dates, those delivery dates on the calendar without some outside influence. So you gotta sign up for things, unfortunately, in order to force all those good, healthy habits. As far as making your combat stance, your everyday stance, I used to say, if I'm going to train for an event, I'm going to train harder than the event itself, right? I'm going to make the event. Why would I not put in all this effort in the training if I'm going to have to put all the effort in at the event? So the concept there is, look, battle is going to be the worst thing you face. So every day you better live as if you're in that battle. Now, somebody like my father-in-law will say, well, that's no fun. I don't know. I mean, I get a lot of fun and pride and satisfaction out of being the best I could be every single day. It just feels good.
Yeah, I truly agree. It often doesn't feel like quite so well in the moment, but it always feels better afterwards than taking the one cookie right now.
I'll take the cookie.
Yeah, and I was really curious about something after I finished my first Spartan race. And that's where you recommend that people who have completed their first Spartan race go next in their Spartan training. If they want to succeed or get a trifecta and maybe compete in the elite eventually.
I don't understand. What's the question?
Yes, where do you recommend that people who have really got excited about Spartan Race after their first one, where do you recommend that they go in their training?
Well, I'm a big believer in yoga, especially Bikram yoga, because I think the only thing that's going to stop you from reaching your goals is injury. And so we got to do a lot of preventive maintenance to avoid that. So I like yoga. I obviously like healthy eating. If you do those two things at your core, and those are your staples, then you build around it, right? We got to do some running, even if it's fast walking. We've got to do some burpees because that's God's gift to us as the world's greatest exercise. We got to do pull-ups because we're going to have to get over walls and climb ropes. We got to do animal movements, bear crawls, crab walks, even some cartwheels, rabbit jumps, etc. Because your body's got to be mobile and flexible. You can't. Most people are stiff. They're very linear in their daily activities. So whether they're biking, swimming, running, it's just a very linear movement. And so we recommend lots of body weight exercises and all kinds of strange animalistic movements, because if you don't have mobility, you don't have flexibility. If you're not doing preventive maintenance with yoga, and then if you're not getting the heart rate up, and strength up with the pull-ups and the burpees and endurance with the running, well, then you're not building the complete package.
Ah, yeah, that's amazing. And I was quite surprised that you made it so clear that Bikram yoga and flexibility was so important. But
super important.
Yeah, because when I think about it, it's always been injuries that have stopped me from training. It's never been working out too hard, but always not being flexible enough or warm enough. So Bikram yoga it is. I'm gonna have to start trying some of that.
You gotta try. You're gonna love
it. Yeah, I figure. So there are two more things I'm curious about. And the first one is, what's a habit you do every day that you find most important to actualize and live at your highest potential?
Every day, I am... hold on 1 second, I'm getting a call from somewhere. Can you hold on 1 second?
Yes, sure.
Actually, I could talk to you. If it rings again, I'll pick it up. Every day, non-negotiable for me is my body weight movements and exercise, and everything I do is based on this idea of building mobility and flexibility, strength, endurance. I have to get my hour to 90 minutes in every single day. Like I said, it's non-negotiable. I have to sweat. You got to break a sweat, otherwise you're not working hard enough. And I gave up everything but water. I'll drink some coconut water here or there. I might slip in some, electrolyte drink once every couple of weeks. But other than that, it's primarily water. And, you want a healthy mind, you want clarity, it comes from having a healthy body. You want a healthy body, it comes from having a healthy mind. So, a lot of people forget the mind lives inside the body. So it's one big package you got to take care of. And that's the way I take care of it every day.
Right. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And just a little personal question there about, I'm curious about when you eat your breakfasts, because I'm a bit uncertain about how long after I wake up to do it myself.
Yeah, I typically work out first, and then I eat. I found that the body just gets used to burning fat, and fat is just a much better source of energy. So I like to get my workout done. I like working out in the morning and then eat after that.
Ah, great. Another thing for me to try out. So the second thing I was wondering about is that if you were to offer your #1 tip to our listeners, people who are passionate about actualizing their potential, what would that #1 tip be?
The #1 tip for reaching your potential, I think, is I wish I could say it's just one thing, right? But it's commitment, and it's committing publicly. It's two, getting used to delaying gratification. So don't take the cookie or the marshmallow right now. Do the hard things. It's three, when the going gets tough, who cares? Who cares? Like at 5 a.m. when the alarm goes off, you got to say to yourself, and I'm just using the alarm as an analogy in the morning, but you got to say to yourself, what would the average person do? The average person would hit the snooze button, but you're not average, right? Not average. And then success breeds success. So if you commit, if you could delay gratification, if you could fight through the tough times, you're going to be successful. And when you're successful, that's going to generate future successes. The brain will actually release little chemicals when you achieve success, when you get to those finish lines in life. And then there's something called future memory, where it will release a little bit of those same chemicals when you embark on the next journey, the next difficult task, the next race, whatever it is. And it'll give you a little taste of what it feels like to get to the end, because you've already been to the end. You've already succeeded at something. So failure, failure is not a terrible thing. You could push through failure, we learn, but boy, success and fighting through breeds future success. So not one tip, but many tips.
Yeah, that's really great. And it was really great that that you get a taste of his success. If you said it was after you hit your first finish line and then embark on the next adventure?
Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. So to wrap this up, is there anything you feel we have missed or that you want to talk about?
I am just so excited that I'm talking to Northern Norway. I'm going to come visit you at some point.
Ah, great. Yeah, can't wait. And do you want to tell us?
Here's what I want. I want some people from Norway to get in touch with you, and from the Nordics in general that want to come to our World Championships. I think that are early October, late September in Lake Tahoe. And we're going to do some kind of a contest because I want to get some of the best athletes out of the Nordics. I will cover some of their expenses to come to the World Championship. So when we hang up, spend a few days figuring out what kind of contest we'll do on your podcast. But I want to put that offer out to your region of the world and bring some of the best athletes around and see how they compete with our other athletes. How's that sound?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you mean that I gather the best athletes here in Norway so they can go down to Lake Tahoe?
Yes.
Wow, yeah, that sounds really cool. I'm in.
All right. You're in. You got to focus on that and even extend it out beyond Norway if you can.
Oh, wow.
Okay?
Yeah, I'll try to do my best.
Do your best. Let me know. Send me an email. I'm happy to put a package together, and we've got to figure out the contest or what qualifies somebody, but let's do that together.
Yeah, really cool. This is quite unexpected, but I gladly say yes. So, alright, fellow Actualizers, if you're curious to look more into Joe De Sena, just follow those instructions. I highly recommend his two books, Spartan Up and Spartan Fit. If you haven't read them, you can get some copies. I'll leave a link in the description. And you can consider committing to your first Spartan race. Joe, thank you so much, and I'm very excited to be connected.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. See you.